Bandin Java Lama Rinpoche, Dagi, Jivara Beme Denshola, Gadum, Chimbubune, Jason, Gosun Doge, Ojo, Dana, Sinjan Sanjaki, Ocho Sonora, Jinge Lado, Ocho Lando, Rora Jinge Lado, Tuba Sora, Jinge Lado, Tuba Yeso Jawara, Jinge Lado, Kanda, Choju Dongi, Deshe, Pomara Joga. Please
listen to the teaching attentively with the cultivation of bodhicitta, altruistic attitude for the welfare of all sentient beings. Yesterday we touched upon the Bardo of death, and today I'd like to speak upon the Bardo of existence or Bardo of possibility. Explain during the first stage of the Bardo of the death, when one fails to recognize the essential nature of the mind during that moment, during that stage, then one comes to one experience to the next stage of the Bardo of Dhammata. During the Bardo of Dhammata, again, essentially it's no difference whatever you are experiencing in the first stage of the Bardo, but during this time, that all the experience comes in the form of the deities. And in short, all the deities of the 100, the peaceful and wrathful, are no different, no separate from the basic nature of the five wisdom, and that result to such that everything is the basic nature of the five wisdom. There is also appearance during that time, or the experience during that time of the five Dhyana Buddha, and so forth in all the deities. As such, that one experiences in this Bardo of Dhammata at the beginning, the experience of the peaceful deities, such as the first very day, one experiences the Akshobhya, the very principal deity of the five Dhyana Buddha, which again the basic nature, essential quality of the five Dhyana Buddha is no different, no separate from the five wisdom, five Dhyana in Sanskrit. So as such that day by day, one experiences the different deities. The first day has explained that Akshobhya and so forth. In failing to recognize that very nature of such deity, then goes to according to the different deities, such as Ratnasambhava and so forth. But along with the appearance or the experience of the deities, five Dhyana Buddhas or peaceful deities, which the basic nature is the five wisdom, along with that, because of again that basic obscuration, the habitual pattern that we have developed, and as a result of our confusion and the deluded mind, along with those experiences, one also experiences the five klashas, five conflicting emotions. So those who have read the Tibetan Book of Dead would be again familiar with the whole idea of this light, the experience of this Bardo of Dhammata that we are dealing with here. But generally that during that stage, you are experiencing the natural clarity of the energy of wisdom, of the five type of wisdom in the very basic nature of the five Dhyana Buddhas, along with the natural clarity of the energy of wisdom. You are also able to experience the energy light of the conflicting emotion. So the basic which is the gate, which is the opening towards the taking or going to the exit, in other words, towards the rebirth. So if one can recognize the difference, the possibility where one can liberate. Otherwise, if one mistakes such, and that's where one takes, again, rebirth within the sixth realm. Because of that reason, that again, some of you have heard yesterday, and the others who haven't been here or heard, that I have requested to you several times that only commitment of those, the empowerment, and as also a general request to make familiar yourself with the Tibetan book. The Tibetan book of, I would rather like to call it a Tibetan book of liberation rather than dead, in that real translation would be rather than liberation. Anyway, you must make familiar with that Tibetan book of liberation, not only again that simply going through the book once and sort of knowing vaguely what the book contains, but rather really becoming very familiar with every content in there, almost sort of memorizing it, read as often as possible, and having read it so often, it becomes impossible to forget. That sort of familiarity needs to be developed in oneself, and with such a liberation becomes very possible. As such, I like to share a story which in the ancient time, in a part of India, there was a beggar. Again, being very poor, destitute, he had no places to live, particular area, location to live. So he was going from home to home, place to place, seeking always shelter. And one day he sought shelter under a roof. That within that family, there seemed to have one individual being died. So being there, sleeping that night in the cold night, he was able to hear where the family had one of their family members being passed away. And again, inability to sleep from the coldness, so to speak, that he was also able to hear the very chantings or recitation of the Tibetan book of liberation by someone inside to that dying or dead person. He had no time. However, it must be made again clear that during that time, in the title, there is no such thing as a Tibetan. It could have been Book of Liberation. But then, of course, having translated that into the Tibetan language and Tibetan being practiced upon that, later the Tibetan Book of Dead or Tibetan Book of Liberation has been inserted. Tibetan is inserted. So the ultimate meaning, the ultimate title of this book is really Book of Liberation from the dead or from the death, because we all, whether Tibetan, English, German, and Spanish, and whatever culture we are, we need to die. That is the ultimate title, the liberation. And in addition to that, we all, regardless of any culture, have the Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha. Now, getting back to the story, having heard the recitation of the Book of Liberation, it intrigued him very much. One of the chapter or one of the stanza, if you like to call, not only word but one of sort of stanza. He had no idea what it was, nor did he have any transmission. But it intrigued him so much, the very idea, he went on repeating what the Lama said, or the teacher, or the person who was chanting. He repeated and repeated. It became part of like his mantra. He was reciting, not even knowing why, what purpose. He was reciting, and he was reciting all the time. Day and night, as he was begging along the street, he was saying that and particularly, he had no one to talk to. So since he had no one to talk to, that was sort of his speech, that he was talking to himself with that word, because it intrigued him very much. Now, the whole point is that this person dies. And when at the state of the Bardo, intermediate stage, when all sort of the experience happened, the first stage, he couldn't recognize, couldn't experience. In the second stage, when the deities sort of appeared, first or second, he couldn't recognize. But at the moment when the very particular deity that he was sort of reciting as a game or hobby in his life became so familiar, what he has been reciting, what he has become familiar with words, with the actual experience, he recognized. And that is, he was able to liberate at that time from this state of Bardo. So therefore, that the nature of mind, in short, sometimes we describe it as in the Bardo state is a tremendously distracted, but actually it is a very unstable situation our mind is very unstable situation at the Bardo state, but at the same time, during the Bardo state or during the intermediate state, and particularly during the first, mind has a tremendous lucid and clarity at the same time. And as a result to the lucid and clarity of such, that the possibility to liberate is also there. It does not lack such. In that manner, again, that I have requested everyone to make really familiar with the Liberation to Hearing book. Again, it is another name for the Book of the Dead. Why, again, this is very essential part of our life, is that having really made a familiar, learned well, almost not only learned but memorized such, that this path, this book of the liberation is a method which deals with 2 points. One, to having made very familiar with the quick and instant liberation is possible, which is the time, duration such that an instant, rapid liberation. At the same time, having made very familiar of liberation, but again, it is should not be regarded as simply a path, simply a remedy, that Mahamudra, but Mahamudra must be regarded as a complete on its own with the ground, the path, and fruition. And since it has a very profound quality within that stress in the practice, it is regarded as one of the supreme and complete method towards the liberation or towards the enlightenment. And that's why the reason, although there are so many paths, in this particular title, that the reason why the term path of liberation is added to, it is a path of liberation. There are generally many paths, so it emphasizes on the liberation aspect. And so that although that the supreme path or that the supreme method of the Mahamudra serves the equal purpose and the profundity of that of the Book of the Liberation.
The Book of Death Quran ke this is mada chakje chimbo thang 근데 Bardo 니기 예와 시에 되고요 말고 Bardo 값은 무엇이 주티 코란 차리신 몇 또 되고 그러마 예 세주티 단대 류된 데라 냠네 지주 대당 그런 거 봐서 랍시나 또 코노테이션스.
And so that in the idea of the applying the Mahamudra practice upon oneself with this equal quality as mentioned as that of the book of the liberation being extremely profound. For example, with your faith, a confidence and devotion, if you receive a teaching from your guru, particularly the Mahamudra teaching, introducing to the nature of mind, virtue of your faith, trust and devotion, that teacher may be able to introduce you to the nature of mind. So you are able to recognize the nature of mind also as a virtue of your faith, trust and devotion to the teacher. But that recognizing that nature of mind that time, when we are alive, is not the final stage. You have to again apply regular meditation to maintain that experience of what the recognizing of the nature of mind was. To develop the continuum of that very particular experience or realization in you through your regular, diligent practice. Introduction, recognizing was not total liberation. So as such, that effort is necessary to furthermore become again familiar with that very experience of recognizing the nature of mind and so forth. There is a tremendous effort is needed in our living situation in order to liberate. As such, that it is rather different in the Bardo state. Although the experience of the nature of very mind is no different from that of the experience of the nature of the mind of the Mahamudra, there is no difference. That should not be separated. But in the Bardo state, if you are able to recognize that very nature of the mind, develop that quality as we need in our regular life, so to speak, when we are alive to develop such in our daily practice, that is not necessary. So that's why it is emphasized that a momentary, immediate liberation is possible in the Bardo state. The very liberation state is no different from the highest realization of Mahamudra. So since it is a very immediate and instant liberation, if one is really made familiar, and it is most powerful method that one can really apply upon oneself, even in a sense equivalence to whereas the Tantrayana, even it's at the greatest fastness, not the profundity but fastness of the liberation, because at that very moment. So that when one again basically that those stage, the first and second stage of the intermediate state of the Bardo is the very profound and highest, and having the greatest opportunity to experience liberation at that very moment, if one is able to recognize and if one has applied. And as such, that the reason why one need to make familiar with all those teachings or those deities and so forth. But again, if one fails to recognize, then as such, after the experience of the peaceful deities, then again one experiences very fearful, wrathful deities. Failing to recognize those wrathful deities as well, one again passes into unconscious state. Then as you go to the third stage of the Bardo of existence, during this, the Bardo of existence, if your neuroses are more stronger, powerful than that was within or in the first and second state of the Bardo. As such, that also this in the third stage you have that very much the imaginative body of what you were when you were dead. So since you have now revived that very feeling that you are existing as you were, you have no conscious awareness that you are dead. You are unable to even accept the idea you are dead. Nobody seems to paying any attention to you. And with such, you also feel rejected, belittled, underestimated. And with all those fears, sadness, frustration, again that you must have read the book, which explains very detailed that you try to examine yourself, such as walking on the sand, but you don't make any footprints, which you used to. Because this time you have only imaginative body, but not the body of flesh, bone and blood. Despite of that inability to accept the fact or the idea I'm dead, that he or she is tremendously frustrated with the knowledge now actually knowing I'm dead, the fear, anxiety grows beyond any limit. At that moment or at that period, then one starts to speculate everything. Speculate what one should do. What am I going to do? What's going to happen to me now? In addition to that fear, anxiety. In addition to the fear and anxiety, you are also speculating a sense that how you can take rebirth. In ultimate purpose or reason that again we must not misunderstand here, the essential nature of mind, that is not really changed. That is always there. Even at that moment or that period, one is not separated, and or the essential nature, the quality of the mind is not being damaged, but it's always there. But as a result, such one have developed that fear and anxiety, discomfort out of learning such situation. Then one seeks to think that it is necessary to find the next rebirth or where to take next rebirth. So one speculates where to take next rebirth. But again, the karmic force, so with the two sort of points getting together with the idea, speculation of this individual, that now I need to take rebirth, as the clinging to grasping to needs to take rebirth. At the same time, that very karmic force takes shape upon oneself, and that grasping and the karmic force, when they get unite together, then this person, this individual experiences rebirth according to the, again, accumulation of karma. That's why karmic force. Bana ti negap seba partu negap dabjine tandang khond sheba na shinki bana semde tendes chundu yore de ina sem khorang nelu ti namyan gyurwa chiyo mar te sonza dando sosoge ta gomto bata ngoshi toba ina ti kapsolo jorju yo sonale
하고서가 단대 춘나 람멘다 당게메게 나오 샤야 람멘다 근데 뭐베게 나온다면 제와 제메게 샤야다 된 상마 근데 쌤게 춘나이 바다 뭐 근데 오늘 배는 담바 마이 바다 근데 된 쌤게 내로 배는 쌤게 라나레 만데바 임바 소소게 디캅도 하고 토바이나 근데 디캅을 단도 저토고요 근데 드디어 저토바이나 근데 제부터 조금 요였잖아요 송아레스.
And because of, again, strong development of the habitual pattern in oneself, as that of the union of the karmic force, as a result to the habitual pattern, that one experiences the vision of where one is going to, or which realm one is going to take birth. And every situation that is happening in the stage or realm where one is going to take rebirth, and as such, again, as a power of one's habitual pattern, one tends to take it very seriously and attach to it. One takes to also sort of liking towards every situation such, and so that's where the habitual pattern leads with the karmic force to the experience of rebirth in different realms. But again, at that time, as we have explained earlier, that the very nature of mind is not changed. And in addition to that, at that time also, on the third stage of Bardo, if you recognize everything that is happening, the fear, the frustration, the feeling of loss, and so forth, if you recognize that is simply the confusion, nothing is a true or real, and it is simply the projection of mind, if you recognize that is simply the projection of the mind, and at that moment even the liberation is possible with such understanding or recognizing the confusion as simply the projection, creation of the mind only. And if one is able, not being distracted, overwhelmed by all the experience during that time, but able to concentrate on the nature of mind, knowing that everything that is happening is simply the projection of mind, the liberation is possible, and that liberation is the nirmanakaya aspect of the liberation. So that if one sort of fails to recognize a liberator at the first and second stage, it never says that on the third stage one cannot liberate. There's a possibility of liberation. But again, on the third stage, because our pure perspective is weak, and impure perspective of everything is stronger due to, as we said, that the conflicting emotion or the neurosis is more powerful, the opportunity to again recognize that the pure nature of mind and that confusion is less. That's why there is a weak point of the possibility of liberating on the third stage, but the possibility is always there. And in addition to that, the fastest or easiest chance to liberate is really on the first and the second stage of the Bardo. Any questions?
Liberation of Dharmakaya, the second is liberation of Samagakaya, and the Nimanakaya. They are all the same, different names. The difference in the quality. Liberating
the idea of the Dhammakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirvanakaya, which is in short the three kayas, could be explained again from two angles, two sides. In one side, that yes, in the realization aspect, that when you have the Dhammakaya, that Dhammakaya is indeed very much the embodiment of the Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya. Sambhogakaya itself is also union with Dhammakaya and Nirmanakaya, and Nirmanakaya is also union with the Dhammakaya and Sambhogakaya. That is from the one aspect, which is of course regarded as from the aspect of the ultimate aspect. And in this particular case that we're talking in the Bardo state of the Dhammakaya, Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya aspect is a very experience that individual develops that moment of liberation. So one is able to experience the liberation of totalness, ultimate the Dhammakaya, and if not then that of the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, it is very much a quality of the mind. So it is in the sense of the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya, you have not completely come to the realization, but even if you are able to liberate in the Sambhogakaya or Nirmanakaya, that the possibility of returning or falling back to the samsara is nil, zero.
Yeah.
Describe it a little further, the distractions we'll face in the first stage, the distractions that will challenge us in the first stage of the body.
At the first stage of Bardo, there's no really particular distraction as that of explained in the third state of the Bardo. The particular really distraction in the first stage is really experiencing you, or you in this sense is really the mind, that experiencing the very ultimate nature of itself, which is emptiness, or feeling more comfortable with the term shunyata. And when you are experiencing that very ultimate nature of itself, the mind, the shunyata, if you are not familiar with the aspect of shunyata, you do not recognize that is as shunyata. So that the emptiness does not simply means that again a complete absence of such. There is the clarity, luminosity which is involved because so if you fail to recognize the emptiness or shunyata, then it's very much really similar like that falling off a very high building. But if you recognize the shunyata emptiness, even when you're falling off, that you have a sense of a pleasure, a joy, that comes from the recognizing that emptiness is not simply the fear aspect, but it's emptiness nature of your mind. And so that is only destruction in the first stage, the emptiness nature of the mind. Of course, that is simply an example, and you should not take the example as a very literal. And His Eminence wants everyone not to try that because it is.
roller coaster
The experience.
roller coaster I like to go into the roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Okay.
So this one, I think, important point is that if you have a practice in this lifetime, and then the moment that you experience of the shunyata, and then it's what we call self-knowing, means then you are able to understand the nature of mind. That is really the clarity of mind. So it doesn't really go just empty or black. Yeah.
On the death process, and there are many other Tibetan texts on the death process. I just wondered if you could comment on these other words in the larger body of work that I understand part of the world is part of.
The book that is available at present, the Tibetan Book of Dead, is the root verses of the Bardo Tudo or the Tibetan Book of Dead. So therefore it has all the qualities, the root, the essential qualities in there. And having become familiar with that, then there are many branches that elaborates and that gives more commentary and clarifies many things.
그다
So-
되는 몰람 세안도 된대요.
and there are prayer, aspiration of prayers of the Bardo and so forth, which gives a greater commentary or the explanation. And if anybody could translate such, would be helpful.
Yes.
I like the idea of reading the book like a map and becoming familiar through studying Tonkas and drawings with the forms of the deities that we might possibly meet and recognize in the Bardo. I somehow feel that seeing Akshobhya and saying, oh, hi, is not exactly the realization that you're looking for. To recognize is to cognate, to see a form that one knows inherently to be something. It has a definition, and yet Mahamudra, as I understand it, is defineless. So somehow I think I'm missing the point here. Could you please clarify?
In the Bardo state, if you can
아니
say
모시에네 바르도.
hi to Buddha Akshobhya, that's liberation. That's sufficient.
모시에네 알교베야 이메 하코네 하이세트나.
At the Bardo state, intermediate state, recognizing the Akshobhya, if you can say hi to him, that's the liberation.
It's enough.
That's sufficient.
I actually have two questions. First, if one is doing poa practice or one has a lama that does it for one at the time of death, how does that relate to these stages? What happens then if the poa is accomplished properly?
The poa practice, which is the practice of the transferring one's consciousness, this is one of, again, skillful method of liberation. But poa, the transferring, what we are transferring is the consciousness. So the person who is doing the transferring, who is practicing poa upon someone else, in really ultimate purpose that he or she has to have some glimpse or knowledge, experience of the nature of mind. Without any such realization developed in the mind of that person who is doing the poa, he or she may not be able to really transfer his or her consciousness to the higher level because this individual lacks such experience. So therefore, having transferred, then it is of course again transferring to the higher state of the mind, which is very much the liberation. But in order to do so, it is really essential that in the sense who is practicing poa upon someone has some realization of the nature of mind. Then as again a virtue of having some realization of the nature of mind, the person who has that quality need to do poa upon them when they die, because you never hear the high advanced teacher when they die, the lamas come to do poa to them. Because of that realization of the nature of mind, they can liberate themselves or recognize and liberate themselves when they die. So it is really necessary to do poa to someone else.
What I'm saying is that even poa practice, it comes to the same point. Because when you do poa, someone who's doing for somebody, and that teacher or lama, whoever doing, and he must have the realization of Mahamudra. Otherwise, he cannot transfer the other consciousness from the falling into the lower realms. So, and the teacher must have the realization, and then there's also tradition that in fact a lot of you been practicing that poa, and you can do poa yourself. And that also, you need to have some experience of the Mahamudra, Because just by practicing physically, having marks, it's not necessarily that you can really transfer your consciousness into the Pure Land. And actually, really, power means transfer means that somebody who have realized that there's nothing to transfer, and through that, then they can really transfer. And that's why now, in 3 years, you have done that. You have done that, right? Mahamudra, we divide it into 2. And like actual that the instruction in mind is Mahamudra Sutra way. And then Tantra is the 6 doctrines of the Naropas, this Poa and Bardo, Gyulu, Kundalini and that. So it's all this, the essence, it comes to the Mahamudra.
So, I have one more question. So, what happens to a person who has realization when they die? You know how they say there's like different levels of realized being, say like His Holiness Karmapa is completely realized, and maybe some tulkus are not completely realized. So what happens in the death process with people like that with different levels of realization?
That's really quite simple here, because in the teaching there is the idea of the 5 paths and 10 stages, or the bhumis. And there is also in Mahamudra the 4 practices of the Mahamudra, the one-pointedness and simplicity and so forth in the 4, which is again classified into 3 each, and becoming sort of 12 in that sense. Also, that everyone who has the title as Tulku are not the one who has completely realized the 10th bhumi or the
realization
10th bhumi, or perfected the 5 paths and perfected the 4 stages of Mahamudra. They are, of course, they have some realization, but does not simply, Rinpoche or Tulku simply incarnated, simply means that the perfection of all those. Exist various level of the Tulku, or the incarnated being also, the supreme Tulku, and so forth. And those comes because the Tulku does not simply mean that all Tulku have perfected the 10th bhumi, the 5 paths, or the 5 yogas of Mahamudra. So because of that even when they experience death, and their experience of the after death, so to speak, accordance to the realization of their mind, or accordance to the stage or bhumi path of the realization of the deals or relates to the path and stages of their mind. However, as being the reincarnated ones, that they do not fall back to the samsaric conditions. Never reversing.
So when the mother and son meet, like you were saying, and the mind recognizes itself, so there's varying, what you're saying is there's varying degrees of that recognition.
Well, yes, and actually, when you in a state of Bardo, and the recognition once, as I've said, the recognition once you have recognized your nature of mind, and that's you liberate it. And during the first stage of Bardo, and that's why I'm, what I explained before, when we say about instant realization, and like, for example, in this lifetime, some your teacher or guru, when he explained or given instruction on the nature of mind, and even though you can have some understanding, but still, it's not really fully realized. So you have to work on that. And then even when you do the meditation, and then during the meditation you have a clear and this experience, and then during post meditation, and you don't have as like you have in during meditation. And so basically, you have to stabilize your meditation, and you have to work. So that's why we differentiate the different stages. And in the Bardo, once you have an experience, and then that's really instant realization, and then it's liberated. And so, but then to have that kind of realization, and then clear moment, so this goes according to the how you have purified your defilements or your realization in this lifetime.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have some questions here regarding the Bardo and right way. How about animals? Do they have the stage of Bardo also? And then how long will they stay during the Bardo? They are going to be searching for birds.
Every being who experiences death will have the Bardo. Animal, bird, insect, so forth, because of their death, that they have the Bardo state again, that experiences of where they're going to take rebirth in the sixth realm, and sometimes their possibility of taking rebirth in the human realm, so they get all those visions of such that animals do also have Bardo state. The main reason why that we regard a human birth as a precious one is that the human beings have the capacity to comprehend, the capacity to understand, and animals are regarded as such taken birth due to their, again, accumulation of the negative karma through their stupidity and their comprehension, understanding level. Understanding level is not being there even in the Bardo state. So therefore, being the animal and able to really understand, comprehend, and as a human, we have that ability to understand or train now or understand in the Bardo state to liberate. That is the only difference. Otherwise, the state of Bardo both goes through the state of Bardo. Did you ask the duration of Bardo for animals? Did you? There is no really particular time or duration in Bardo, both really in a human or in animal. It all depending upon individuals' accumulation of the positive and negative karma. Duration of Bardo accordance with that. It has no particular. As a general duration that is given to us is like 49 days. And within that 49 days, one takes a birth.
Okay.
I think my question fits into that a little bit. When you talk about time periods in the Bardo, like 3 days to recognize the nature of our mind, or 49 days, is that the same 49 days that we experience in this plane of existence? And also, if it is or if it isn't, how do we experience time in the Bardo state? Is it
the days, the duration that we have given, such as 3 days, 49 days, are really related to our human experience of the day and night. Bardo state is timeless. There's no day, no night. Therefore, it is timeless.
So when you say we have 3 days, we're not going to feel real rushed when we're in the Bardo.
In addition to that, if you think that you can recognize it, you can relax.
If the mind is unborn and undying, and we have good luck to liberate our mind by seeing ultimate nature in the Bardo, what is existence like being liberated? What is the nature of the liberation that we're trying to achieve?
What is existence like in the liberated condition?
If mind is undying, if it never dies, and it gets liberated, what does it do?
That's really very good question, actually. This brings back the whole idea of the emptiness nature of mind. Again, that emptiness one should not really take as literally as the absence of thing, a void. But this emptiness nature is also an unobstructed clarity in the empty nature of the mind, the clarity which is unobstructed. This now explains the whole idea of liberation. Does not mean that again you fall in a gap where you have nothing to do, or so to speak, but rather every situation that you are experiencing at present state now, there is a discriminative, judgmental mind involved in it. This is this, this is that, and so forth. This is the confused state of mind that is grasping to what is it, what is not it, that grasping, clinging to labeling of what seems to be in front or what we are experiencing. Liberation in this sense, or the realization of the nature of mind in this sense, is you go beyond the judgmental mind. The nature of mind, as again explained, has two qualities, the emptiness quality and the clarity quality. The clarity quality explaining the unobstructed nature of the mind. Then you're simultaneously able to experience everything without labeling any, and therefore your possibility to benefit, work, and aid beings is limitless at present due to such labeling or this discriminating or judgmental mind, that our capacity to help benefit being limited. So that the limitless quality to work for the benefit of living beings, that cannot be obstructed by anything. You can work, benefit effortlessly, is known as Buddha activity.
Okay.
So
last question, yes.
So during the Bardo, one is liberated, and they see the need to take a body to help beings. Do they use the Bardo experience like the third stage to gain rebirth? How do they take a body again?
Body?
A human form.
Yes.
Again, how do they do that? Do they use the third stage of the Bardo, the existence stage, to re-enter into
we are dealing with the third state of Bardo, or stage of Bardo, of the existence, Bardo of existence. Now here again, one do not have any choice of taking birth where one wants to, human, animal, God, and so forth. This is what we were dealing with, that here the rebirth takes upon oneself to the karmic force. Karmic force referring to also whatever habitual pattern that you have developed, and as a result of that habitual pattern, that another name for such is known as karmic force, and becoming very familiar, being built that karmic habitual pattern so much in your mind, at that level then you learn to take birth towards that realm, whichever, again, the force or whichever more habitual pattern that you have developed, not only the human, but of animal and hungry ghosts, gods, demigod, wherever you need to take that force. That habitual pattern leads you to experience birth there without really a personal choice. So for example, that if one is able to recognize, liberate oneself on the first and second stage of the Bardo, which we talked of the liberation. The whole idea of liberation is
understanding, you know.
And the whole idea of here recognizing, liberating means liberating from the chains of the habitual pattern of the obscuration of the mind, and having liberated from there. Maybe that again one should not take that liberation as a complete enlightenment, but you are liberated from the chain of the habitual pattern of the karma. Thereafter, having liberated there, then with the choice, not choicelessly, with your own choice, you can reincarnate, and this is known as the supreme reincarnation.
심지어 뱀베 대야 소스 기부다에 된다 많이 매지.
Again, this supreme reincarnation is not personal benefit.
개와 소스 간데 렌초고 레슬라버바 this 소스 기부다야 많이 매지. 심지어 로에 된다.
And this, although this individual who is known as liberated has the whole chance to reincarnate according to one's wish, but he or she does not reincarnate to the pleasure of his mind in a different realm, but for the betterment, for the benefit of living beings.
I have two questions.
What?
And one of them is totally unrelated to your subject today, but I'll start with the first one, which is related. Now,
Yes.
what would be the karma of someone like Hitler, who did things that are really beyond that which the ordinary karma would allow, because he exterminated and tortured and was a tremendous force for destruction? What would happen to him in the Bardo, and also what would be his karmic pattern according to the deeds in this last life, and the life we know about?
I have to deal with the topic with a very honesty here. And personally, I cannot specifically say where he went, what state of Bardo he experienced specifically. According to judging from his actions, behavior of destroying many lives, it seems that he did not really experience the first or second stage of Bardo, but went direct down.
이나야 다운스도 야요야 텐들 춘이레스 코만로도 야요야 고갑시다요.
But everything is based upon the interdependent connection, that what is false, it rises also. So down can rise.
What awaits him?
How, sorry?
What awaits him in his evolution? Because he was very intelligent, he had the brain of a genius. So we cannot say that he did not. He certainly had a greater intellectual.
That's what his eminence said.
What is going to happen to him? Is he going to continue to evolve, or is he going to be stopped? Or
He can take rebirth.
he will be born with a great handicap. I don't know how big it have to be. I mean, this is the one karmic situation which I'm unable to cope with. It's like talking in terms of billions or trillions. It's just so big that is why I bring it up, because I have been thinking about it often.
Yes, His Eminence understands and sympathizes upon all such, but what we can do from our side is to really pray, aspire goodness to every being.
Unless he was an instrument of karma, is there such a thing as being an instrument of karma? Unless if he was an instrument of karma, I don't know how that works.
Yes.
But then there would be an attenuating circumstance. Could he be such a thing? Is there such a thing as an instrument of karma? There is, and could he have been such?
And that it is not proper to dislike or hate such a person, but rather pray for his better rebirth and possibly liberation. That very much relates that idea with even a Tibetan, is that the Mao Zedong, the chairman of Mao Zedong, and he has also created the same problem, but instead of disliking, hating, that since both this individual has the Tathagata